The scent of lavender candles greeted me when I opened the door to our apartment. 7 years of my life were contained within these walls, along with countless memories, most of them good. Lauren always lit those specific candles whenever she wanted something or was planning to deliver news she knew would upset me. Over time, I had come to associate that sweet, floral aroma with manipulation. "Ethan, we need to talk," Lauren said, standing near our living room window with arms crossed defensively across her chest. She wore that blue dress I had bought her for our anniversary 3 months ago. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, makeup flawless, always camera ready, even for heartbreak. I dropped my messenger bag onto the hardwood floor, the thud echoing through the tension-filled apartment. Downtown Chicago traffic hummed 14 floors below, oblivious to the implosion happening in apartment 1408. Another "we need to talk" conversation. Last time it was about your sister moving in, which lasted 6 months longer than the 2 weeks you promised, I said, keeping my voice measured while slipping off my suit jacket. The day had been long enough without whatever drama awaited me now. Lauren's eyes, those hazel eyes that once made my heart skip, remained cold and distant. "This is different. I'm tired, Ethan, tired of this life, this routine, these walls. You're a good man, but I need to live for myself now. I need space to discover who I really am." I almost laughed at the cliche. 7 years reduced to lines that sounded like they belonged in a bad romance novel. 7 years of supporting her through 3 career changes, paying for her endless self-improvement courses, funding her essential shopping sprees and girls' trips. 7 years of building a future she apparently never wanted. "So you're leaving," I stated flatly. Not a question, because her packed suitcase by the door had already provided the answer. Lauren nodded, not a single tear staining her expertly contoured cheeks. "I need to focus on myself right now. Find my passion. Live authentically." More buzzwords from those self-help retreats I'd financed. $25,000 last year alone for her to find herself at exclusive desert resorts with organic meals and celebrity guest speakers. The irony wasn't lost on me. "When did you decide this?" I asked, surprising myself with my calm tone. "It's been building for months. I feel like there's nothing of me left in these walls, like my soul is somewhere else, waiting for me to reclaim it." She spoke with rehearsed conviction, her eyes flicking momentarily to the expensive watch on her wrist, another gift from me. I moved to the kitchen island, poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon, and took a slow, deliberate sip. "And what about our plans? The house in Lake Forest? The wedding venue we put a deposit on last month?" Lauren sighed dramatically. "Those were more your dreams than mine. I went along with them because I thought that's what I was supposed to want." My hand tightened around the glass. "And the joint accounts? The investments we made together? Your car that's in my name? The credit cards I pay for?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face, cracking the polished veneer. "Well, I was hoping we could work something out. I mean, until I get established in my new life, it would be cruel to just cut me off after all this time together." There it was, the real reason for the carefully staged breakup scene, complete with mood lighting and her wearing the dress I loved. She wanted out of the relationship but expected to maintain access to my financial support. "Let me understand this correctly," I said, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. "You want to leave me, live your exciting new life of self-discovery, but continue to benefit from my money and stability when it's convenient?" Lauren shifted uncomfortably. "That sounds so transactional, Ethan." "I just need some transition time. A few months of support while I figure things out. We've been together 7 years. Doesn't that count for something?" I took another sip of bourbon, feeling the warm burn down my throat. "Yes, it counts for exactly 7 years of memories. Nothing more, nothing less." She grabbed her purse from the counter, frustration replacing her practiced serenity. "Why are you being difficult? I thought you'd be more understanding." "Understanding would be recognizing that choices have consequences," I replied, placing my glass down with precision. "You can't have the perks of being with me without actually being with me." "That's not how this works." Lauren's perfectly sculpted eyebrows furrowed. So you're just going to abandon me? After everything we've been through? The audacity was almost impressive. I'm not abandoning anyone. You're the one walking out that door, Lauren. I'm simply respecting your decision by not following you with my wallet open. She stared at me for several long seconds before grabbing her suitcase. You'll regret this. I know you, Ethan. In a few days, you'll be calling me, begging me to reconsider. I shook my head slowly. I don't think so. Not this time. With a final huff, she walked out, leaving her keys on the entryway table. The door closed with a decisive click, and just like that, 7 years ended. I stood in the sudden stillness of the apartment, breathing in the lingering lavender and her expensive perfume. The weight of everything felt simultaneously crushing and liberating. I finished my bourbon, walked to the windows, and looked out at the Chicago skyline, lights twinkling against the darkening sky like stars you could almost touch. For the first time in years, I felt something unexpected. Relief. The silence in the apartment stretched on through that first night, broken only by the occasional car horn from the street below or the hum of the refrigerator. I wandered through our shared space, seeing it with new eyes. Her decorative pillows that served no functional purpose. Her collection of crystal figurines that I wasn't allowed to dust. Her framed motivational quotes that now seemed laughably hollow. I slept surprisingly well, spread across the entire king-size bed without having to accommodate her collection of decorative pillows or her strict no touching while sleeping rule. Morning came with determination rather than despair. I rose at 6, showered, and made myself a proper breakfast instead of the green juice Lauren insisted was the only acceptable way to start the day. With coffee in hand, I sat at my computer and began systematically dismantling our financial entanglement. First, I transferred half of our joint savings to a new private account. Fair, but not a penny more. Next, I removed her as an authorized user on my credit cards. I changed the passwords on our investment portfolios and contacted my insurance agent to remove her as my beneficiary. By noon, I had redrawn the boundaries of my financial life. The sense of control was intoxicating. Years of subtle compromises and accommodations were being undone with each click and phone call. My phone rang at precisely 12:37 p.m. Lauren's name flashed on the screen. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but decided that delaying the inevitable would only prolong the process. Hello, Lauren, I answered, keeping my tone neutral. What the hell do you think you're doing? Her voice crackled with indignation. My cards were declined at brunch, and I just got notifications about account changes. I leaned back in my chair. I'm respecting your decision to live authentically and independently. By cutting me off? Are you serious? The pitch of her voice rose with each word. I told you I need transition time. And I decided not to offer it, I replied calmly. You made your choice yesterday, Lauren. Now you get to experience the full authenticity of that choice. Ethan, be reasonable. I need time to find a job, get my own place. You can't expect me to just figure everything out overnight. Why not? You clearly had enough time to decide our relationship was over. Did you not plan beyond walking out that door? Her frustrated sigh whistled through the phone. This isn't fair. I deserve better after everything I've put into this relationship. I nearly laughed out loud. And what exactly would that be? The relationship you just discarded? The plans you just told me were never really your dreams? Please enlighten me about your contributions. You're being cruel, she snapped. I didn't think you could be this petty. It's not petty to establish boundaries, Lauren. It's necessary. You wanted freedom from me in this relationship. I'm simply ensuring you get exactly what you asked for. Complete freedom from all aspects of me, including my financial support. I need at least 3 months of support, she countered, her tone shifting to negotiation. Just until I can get on my feet. You've been on an extended vacation from reality for years, I said firmly. Consider this your wake-up call. I'm not your safety net anymore. You'll regret this, she threatened again, her voice lowering. I know things about you, Ethan. Things your company wouldn't appreciate hearing. The attempted blackmail should have angered me, but instead, it only confirmed I was making the right decision. Are you threatening me now, Lauren? because that would be a very unwise choice. A moment of silence passed before she spoke again, her voice artificially sweet. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just upset. Can't we talk about this in person? Over dinner, maybe? I'll wear that black dress you love. Goodbye, Lauren, I said, and ended the call. Within minutes, my phone began buzzing with text notifications, first pleading, then angry, then manipulative. I silenced them all and went for a long walk along the lakefront, breathing in the crisp autumn air and feeling lighter with each step. The first week passed in a blur of logistics and adjustments. I contacted the wedding venue and lost the deposit, but the freedom was worth every penny. I called the realtor and put the Lake Forest house search on hold. I boxed up Lauren's remaining belongings and arranged for her friend Jessica to pick them up while I was at work, avoiding another confrontation. At the office, I threw myself into projects I'd been neglecting, staying late without having to worry about Lauren's complaints. My boss noticed the change. "Something's different about you, Reynolds," he commented one evening as we reviewed quarterly projections. "You seem more focused, more present." I nodded, surprised by how perceptive he was. "Just reprioritizing some things in my life, sir." He studied me for a moment before cracking a rare smile. "Well, whatever it is, keep it up. The Anderson account needs that kind of attention." The Anderson account, a potential multi-million-dollar client I'd been pursuing for months. With renewed energy, I developed a comprehensive proposal that addressed their specific needs rather than using our standard template. 2 weeks later, they signed with us, bringing a substantial commission and putting me in line for the promotion I'd been eyeing. Meanwhile, Lauren's messages had evolved from anger to desperation. Her latest text revealed she'd been evicted from her friend's guest house where she'd been staying. "I have nowhere to go," she wrote. "My credit cards are maxed out. Please, Ethan, I need help. Just a small loan to get through the month." I read the message twice before responding simply, "You wanted independence. This is what it looks like." Then I blocked her number. That weekend, I cleared out the spare bedroom that had become a storage space for Lauren's excess shopping bags and seasonal decorations. I set up my old photography equipment, a passion I'd abandoned when Lauren complained about the time it took away from her. I dusted off my cameras, ordered new lenses, and scheduled a weekend trip to Michigan to photograph the fall colors. For the first time in years, I was rediscovering parts of myself that had been packed away to make room for Lauren's outsized presence in my life. I joined a local running group, started cooking again, and reconnected with friends who had gradually disappeared under Lauren's subtle disapproval. 3 months after Lauren walked out, I attended a business conference in Dallas representing our firm. The event was being held at an architecturally significant hotel, and during a break between sessions, I found myself taking photos of the impressive atrium with its geometric glass ceiling. "You've got a good eye," a voice commented from behind me. I turned to find a woman with striking blue eyes studying my camera screen. Her conference badge read, "Haley Bennett, Arc Vision Partners." "Thanks," I replied, suddenly aware of how long it had been since I'd had a conversation with an attractive woman who wasn't Lauren. "The light in here is incredible." "It should be," she said with a slight smile. "I was on the design team for this renovation." That skylight was my personal battle with the structural engineers. "Well, I'm glad you won," I said, finding myself genuinely smiling back. "I'm Ethan Reynolds, by the way." "Haley Bennett," as she replied, extending her hand. "Are you attending the marketing panel or the sustainability workshop next?" We ended up skipping both in favor of coffee in the hotel's garden courtyard, where conversation flowed with surprising ease. Haley was an architect specializing in sustainable commercial projects, intelligent without being showy about it, passionate about her work without making it her entire identity. When she talked about buildings, her eyes lit up with authentic enthusiasm that made it impossible not to be drawn in. "Sorry," she said after enthusiastically explaining the passive cooling system she'd designed for a client in Arizona. "I tend to get carried away talking about my work." "Don't apologize," I replied. "It's refreshing to hear someone talk about something they genuinely care about." Her smile was warm, lacking the calculated quality I'd grown accustomed to with Lauren. "So what about you? Marketing executive by day, photographer by other parts of the day?" I laughed. "Photography's just a hobby I'm rediscovering." But yes, marketing strategy is my day job. And do you get carried away talking about marketing strategy? She asked with a teasing lilt in her voice. Only when I've had too much coffee, I admitted. Or when I'm trying to impress someone. And are you? Trying to impress me? Her directness was disarming. I think I might be, I answered honestly. We exchanged numbers before the end of the conference, and over the next few months, our relationship developed through weekend visits, long phone calls, and a growing sense that something significant was happening between us. Haley was different from Lauren in every way that mattered. Is when she had her own successful career and financial independence. She valued experiences over possessions. She listened as much as she talked. And most importantly, she was authentically herself without needing constant validation or resources from me. 6 months into our relationship, during a weekend she was visiting Chicago, Haley asked about my previous relationship. You never really talk about your ex, she said as we walked along Navy Pier, watching the sunset paint the sky in vivid oranges and pinks. 7 years is a long time to be with someone. I considered deflecting, but decided Haley deserved honesty. Lauren wanted the benefits of a relationship without the responsibilities. When she left, she expected me to keep financially supporting her while she found herself. It took me too long to recognize the pattern. Haley listened thoughtfully. That must have been difficult to work through. It was, I admitted, but in retrospect, her leaving was the best thing that could have happened. It forced me to see how much of myself I'd compromised. She squeezed my hand. Well, for what it's worth, I like this uncompromised version of you quite a bit. That night, as Haley slept beside me, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. Curious, I checked the message. Ethan, it's Lauren. I'm using Jessica's phone. Please, I need to talk to you. It's important. I silently debated with myself before responding. Whatever it is, I'm not interested. The reply came quickly. I made a huge mistake. I miss you. The guy I was seeing took everything and disappeared. Please just meet me for coffee, for old time's sake. I looked at Haley, peaceful in sleep, and back at the desperate message from a woman who had walked away from me without a backward glance until she needed something. No, I typed simply and turned off the phone. The next morning over breakfast, I told Haley about Lauren's message. Are you curious about what she wanted? Haley asked, stirring honey into her tea. Not enough to find out, I replied honestly. Some chapters are better left closed. Haley nodded, understanding without jealousy or insecurity. It was just another reminder of how different this relationship was, built on mutual respect rather than dependency or manipulation. Life continued its forward momentum. My promotion came through, bringing new responsibilities and opportunities. Haley's firm opened a Chicago office, allowing her to relocate without sacrificing her career. We found a loft in Wicker Park with enough space for both my photography studio and her drafting table. Moving in together felt natural, without the anxiety or second-guessing that had characterized my relationship with Lauren. Almost a year after Lauren left, I was meeting a client for lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown when I spotted her. She was working as a hostess, wearing the restaurant's standard black uniform instead of her usual designer clothes. Her hair was pulled back simply, her makeup minimal. She hadn't seen me yet, busy seating another group of customers. I considered asking for a different table, but decided that avoiding her would give the situation more power than it deserved. When she finally approached to lead me to my table, her eyes widened in recognition. Ethan, she said, her professional smile faltering. I didn't know you were coming here today. Hello, Lauren, I replied calmly. I have a reservation for 2 under Reynolds. She nodded stiffly, checking her tablet. Yes, of course, follow me, please. As she led me through the restaurant, I could see tension in her shoulders, embarrassment in her rigid posture. Your server will be right with you, she said formally after seating me. Enjoy your meal. Thank you, I replied, maintaining the polite fiction that we were just hostess and customer. She hesitated, then asked quietly, How have you been? Very well, thank you, I said, not elaborating further. Lauren glanced around to ensure no one was watching. I've tried to reach you. Did you get my messages? I did, and you couldn't even respond. A hint of the old entitlement crept into her voice. I responded to the first one, I said evenly. My answer hasn't changed. Her carefully maintained composure slipped. Do you enjoy seeing me like this? Working for tips, living in a tiny studio apartment? Is this what you wanted? I looked at her directly. I never wanted anything bad for you, Lauren. But your current situation isn't my responsibility. It's the result of your choices. You could have helped me, she insisted, lowering her voice as a colleague walked past. Just a little support while I got back on my feet. You didn't want my support, I corrected her. You wanted my money without having to be in a relationship with me. Those aren't the same thing. Lauren's face flushed. You were always so self-righteous, so black and white about everything. I shook my head. No, I simply learned to value myself enough not to be used anymore. There's a difference. Is everything all right here? A man's voice interrupted. The restaurant manager had approached, eyeing our tense conversation with concern. Lauren immediately straightened, professional mask back in place. Everything's fine, Michael. I was just making sure Mr. Reynolds had everything he needed. The manager nodded, unconvinced. Your client has arrived, Mr. Reynolds. Shall I show her to the table? That would be great, thank you, I replied. Lauren's eyes followed his gesture toward the entrance, where my client, a stylishly dressed woman in her 50s, was waiting. The relief on Lauren's face was visible when she realized it was a business meeting rather than a date. The manager led my client over, and Lauren retreated to her hostess station, throwing occasional glances in my direction throughout the meal. I focused on my client and our discussion, not giving Lauren the satisfaction of my attention. As I paid the bill, the server handed me a folded napkin along with my receipt. From Lauren, he said discreetly. I unfolded it to find a hastily scrawled note. We need to talk properly. My shift ends at 8. Please, Ethan. I left the napkin on the table and exited without looking back. That evening, Haley and I were cooking dinner together when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Aren't you going to get that? Haley asked as I ignored it. It's probably Lauren, I said, continuing to chop vegetables. I saw her today at lunch. She was working as a hostess at the restaurant. Haley raised an eyebrow. And how was that? Uncomfortable, I admitted. She wanted to talk, but there's nothing left to say. The phone stopped ringing, only to start again a minute later. Haley glanced at it. She seems persistent. I sighed and answered. Hello, Lauren. You didn't wait for me, she said, accusation thick in her voice. I asked you to wait. I didn't agree to wait, I pointed out. I have nothing to say to you. Well, I have plenty to say to you, she countered. I've had time to think, Ethan. I made a mistake leaving you. We had something good, and I threw it away because I was confused. But I'm clear now. I want another chance. I moved away from the kitchen into the living room, lowering my voice though Haley could undoubtedly still hear. That's not going to happen, Lauren. Why not? She demanded. People make mistakes. They grow from them. I've grown. I'm with someone else, I said firmly, and even if I weren't, we would never work. What we had wasn't healthy. Her tone changed instantly. Someone else? Already? Who is she? That client from today? That's none of your business, I replied. Don't call me again, Lauren. It's over. It has been for a long time. You can't just replace me like that. Her voice rose. 7 years together, and you've already moved on. What does that say about what we had? It says I recognized my worth and found someone who values it too, I answered honestly. Goodbye, Lauren. I ended the call and blocked the number, then returned to the kitchen where Haley was stirring the pasta sauce, deliberately giving me space. Everything okay? She asked without turning around. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin on her shoulder. Better than okay, I said truthfully. I'm exactly where I want to be. She leaned back against me, and we stood like that for a moment. The simple comfort of our connection, a stark contrast to the drama that had just played out over the phone. She'll probably keep trying to contact you, Haley said eventually. Probably, I agreed, but she'll have to get used to disappointment. Over the next few weeks, Lauren escalated her attempts to reach me. She sent emails to my work account, left notes at my office reception, even approached mutual friends to pass messages. Each time I maintained firm boundaries, refusing to engage. Then one evening, the doorman of our building called up. Mr. Reynolds, there's a Lauren Wilson here insisting on seeing you. She seems quite upset. Should I send her away? I exchanged glances with Haley, who was reviewing blueprints at our dining table. Do you want me to go somewhere else for this? She asked. Absolutely not, I replied firmly before returning to the call. Tell her I'm not available, George. And please don't let her up today or any other day. Will do, Mr. Reynolds, the doorman replied. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded with notifications. Lauren had found Haley's professional social media and was publicly commenting on her posts, calling her a homewrecker, and making wild accusations about how our relationship started. She'd also started messaging my colleagues with similar claims. This is getting out of hand, Haley said, showing me the notifications on her phone. I nodded grimly. I'll handle it. I called Lauren directly from Haley's phone, knowing she would answer an unfamiliar number. When she picked up, I didn't give her a chance to speak. This stops now, Lauren, I said, my voice cold with controlled anger. The social media harassment, the messages to my colleagues, all of it stops immediately, or I'll file for a restraining order and report you to the police for harassment. You wouldn't dare, she challenged, though I detected uncertainty beneath the bravado. Try me, I replied evenly. I have documented every attempt you've made to contact me after I clearly told you to stop. Every email, every message, every note. What you're doing is harassment, and it will have consequences. I just want to talk to you, she insisted. Why are you being so cruel? This isn't cruelty, Lauren. This is a boundary. You made your choice a year ago when you walked out. I've moved on. You need to do the same. With that architect? She spat. Does she know what kind of man you really are? How controlling, how vindictive. Stop, I interrupted. This conversation is over. Delete your social media posts about Haley. Stop contacting my colleagues and leave us alone. This is your only warning. I ended the call and looked at Haley, who had been listening to my side of the conversation with concern. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, I said sincerely. Haley shook her head. Don't apologize for her behavior. None of this is your fault. Still, I sighed, you didn't sign up for this drama. I signed up for you, she said simply. Everything else we handled together. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I wanted to build a life with this woman who stood beside me with such unwavering support. The next morning, I received an email from Lauren. The tone was drastically different from her previous messages. Subdued, almost formal. I apologize for my behavior. You're right that it was inappropriate. I've deleted all social media posts regarding Haley and will not contact your colleagues again. I hope you can forgive my temporary lapse in judgment. I wish you both well. I showed the email to Haley. What do you think? Genuine remorse or tactical retreat? Hard to say, she replied thoughtfully, but at least she's backing off. I wanted to believe it was over, but something about the sudden change in tone felt off. Lauren had never been one to admit defeat so easily. My instincts proved correct 3 days later when I received an urgent call from my bank's fraud department. Mr. Reynolds, we're calling about some unusual activity on your accounts. Someone attempted to take out a personal loan in your name using your social security number and other personal information. We flagged it as suspicious because the application came from an IP address not associated with your usual locations. My blood ran cold. Was the loan approved? No, sir. Our security protocols caught it, but we're concerned about how someone obtained your personal information. We recommend filing a police report and placing a freeze on your credit. After following the bank's recommendations and spending hours securing my financial information, I called my attorney to discuss options. The evidence pointed clearly to Lauren. She had access to my personal information from our years together, knew my mother's maiden name and other security question answers, and had clear motivation. We have enough for a police report, my attorney advised. Identity theft is a serious crime. With the harassment documentation you've collected, plus this attempt at fraud, we can make a compelling case. I nodded grimly. Let's do it. The following day, I filed a police report. 2 days later, detectives confirmed that the IP address from the loan application traced back to a coffee shop near Lauren's apartment. Security footage showed her using a laptop there at the time of the application. When they arrested Lauren at the restaurant where she worked, she reportedly broke down, alternating between tears and rage, claiming I had set her up because I was bitter about our breakup. The charges were serious: identity theft, attempted fraud, and harassment. I didn't attend her arraignment, but my attorney reported that she had been released on bail with strict conditions, including no contact with Mimi or Haley. Her employment at the restaurant had been terminated following her arrest. A week later, I received a letter from Lauren's attorney proposing a deal. If I agreed to drop the charges, Lauren would move to Seattle, where her sister lived, seek counseling, and sign a legally binding agreement never to contact me again. I discussed the offer with Haley over dinner that night. Part of me wants to see her face consequences, I admitted, but another part just wants this chapter closed completely. Haley considered this thoughtfully. What would give you the most peace? After much deliberation, I agreed to the deal with additional conditions. Lauren would admit in writing to the identity theft attempt, which would be held in escrow by my attorney. She would begin counseling before leaving Chicago and continue in Seattle. And she would pay restitution for my legal fees and the time I'd lost dealing with the financial aftermath of her fraud attempt. Her attorney countered, arguing about the restitution amount, but eventually accepted all terms. 2 weeks later, Lauren was on a plane to Seattle, legally bound to stay away from me and Haley. The relief was immediate and profound. The constant tension of waiting for Lauren's next move evaporated, replaced by a sense of closure that had been missing even after our initial breakup. Life settled into a pleasant rhythm. Haley's Chicago office thrived under her direction, while my career continued its upward trajectory. We traveled, entertained friends, built a home together that reflected both our personalities. On weekends, we explored the city or took short trips to nearby towns, capturing it all through my increasingly skilled photography. A year after the Lauren ordeal ended, I proposed to Haley during a sunset architecture tour on Lake Michigan, her passion for buildings and my love of photography coming together in a perfect moment. She said yes, without hesitation, and the life I had once thought was ending when Lauren walked out was actually just beginning. The wedding was planned for the following spring. Nothing extravagant, just a meaningful ceremony with friends and family at a boutique hotel Haley had helped design. During the planning, we occasionally joked about Lauren showing up in a dramatic scene like in the movies, but the reality was far less cinematic. 2 months before our wedding, I received an email from Jessica, Lauren's old friend. I thought you should know that Lauren was arrested in Seattle last week. She's been running the same scam on multiple men, moving in, building a life, then leaving but expecting ongoing financial support. When they refused, she attempted identity theft, just like with you. She's facing serious charges this time. Multiple counts, multiple victims. I'm sorry for my part in enabling her behavior when you were together. You deserve better. I showed the email to Haley, feeling a complex mix of emotions: vindication, sadness for the person Lauren had become, relief that I had escaped when I did. Are you okay? Haley asked, watching my face carefully. Yes, I said, and meant it. I'm just grateful for how things turned out for us. Our wedding day arrived with perfect spring weather, the Chicago skyline providing a stunning backdrop for our rooftop ceremony. As Haley walked toward me in her elegant architectural dress, designed naturally to complement the building's distinctive lines, I felt a sense of rightness that had been missing from my relationship with Lauren. During the reception, my best man Todd raised his glass for a toast. To Ethan and Haley, he said, grinning at us, proof that sometimes you have to go through the wrong door to find the right one. Guests laughed and clinked glasses, unaware of how accurate his metaphor truly was. Only Haley squeezed my hand knowingly under the table, her touch conveying everything words couldn't. 3 years later, our son Liam was born, a tiny, perfect combination of Haley's blue eyes and my dark hair. As I held him in the hospital room, Haley resting after 20 hours of labor, I marveled at how drastically life could change course. If Lauren hadn't walked out that night, convinced she deserved both freedom and financial support, I might never have found my way to this moment, to Haley, to Liam, to the life we were building that was richer and more authentic than anything I'd had before. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is to leave, even when it doesn't feel that way at the time. Lauren's departure had been a disguised blessing, painful but ultimately liberating. It had forced me to reclaim my self-worth, to recognize that love shouldn't come with continuous financial demands or emotional manipulation. The last I heard of Lauren was a brief news item online. Former Chicago woman sentenced in multi-state identity theft scheme. The article mentioned 5 victims across 3 states, all men she had been in relationships with, all subjected to the same pattern of exploitation. She received 8 years in federal prison. I didn't feel satisfaction at her downfall, just a distant sadness for a woman who had never understood that real connections aren't transactional. Lauren had always seen relationships as a means to an end: comfort, security, financial support. She had never learned that true partnership is about growing together, supporting each other through challenges, celebrating successes as a team. On Liam's second birthday, as we watched him messily devour chocolate cake in our backyard surrounded by friends, Haley leaned against my shoulder. "Happy?" she asked simply. I looked at our son, at our home, at the life we'd created together, and nodded. Completely. Our peaceful celebration was shattered the following morning by an unexpected visitor. The doorbell rang insistently at 7:30 a.m. Through the security camera, I saw her instantly, Lauren looking disheveled and agitated, pacing on our front porch. "Ethan, I know you can see me. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking for," she pleaded, staring directly into the camera. Haley appeared behind me, still in her pajamas, hair tousled from sleep. "Is that Lauren?" I confirmed grimly. "Stay with Liam. I'll handle this." Haley touched my arm, concern etched across her face. "Should we call the police?" "She's violating the restraining order." I considered this, watching Lauren's increasingly erratic movements on the small screen. Let me try to defuse the situation first. If she doesn't leave, then we call. When I opened the door, Lauren's appearance shocked me. The well-groomed, always perfect woman I had known was gone. Her eyes were bloodshot and wild, her once immaculate blonde hair tangled and dull. She wore wrinkled clothes that looked slept in. "You weren't supposed to find me," she blurted, stepping forward. I blocked the doorway, keeping her firmly on the porch. "They're taking me away tomorrow, federal charges, 8 years minimum. I couldn't go without seeing you one last time." "How did you find this address?" I asked coldly. "And why are you in Chicago?" "You're supposed to be in Seattle." Lauren laughed, a hollow sound devoid of humor. "I never went to Seattle. The deal was a joke. I've been watching you, watching your perfect little family." Her voice cracked on the last word. "Do you have any idea what it's like? Seeing you build everything we talked about with someone else?" "Lauren, you need to leave," I stated firmly, feeling a familiar tension creep up my spine. "You're violating your restraining order. I don't want to call the police, but I will." "The police," she scoffed, tears suddenly streaming down her face. "What does it matter now? My life is over anyway. I've lost everything. My freedom, my future, my dignity, and you're here living the dream we were supposed to share." "The dream you walked away from," I reminded her. "You made that choice, Lauren. All of this," I gestured to her disheveled state, "is the result of your decisions, not mine." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "We could still run away together. Right now, I have cash, new identities. We could disappear, start fresh where nobody knows us." The absurdity of her suggestion would have been laughable if it weren't so disturbing. "Lauren, stop. This fantasy world you've created isn't real. We're done. We've been done for years." "Because of her," Lauren hissed, her expression darkening as she glanced past me toward the interior of the house. "She stole everything that was supposed to be mine." I felt a protective rage surge through me. "Don't you dare bring Haley into this." "She didn't steal anything. You threw it away." Lauren's face contorted with sudden fury. She reached into her purse, and for one horrifying moment, I thought she might have a weapon. Instead, she pulled out a stack of photographs, surveillance images of Haley, Liam, and me at parks, restaurants, outside our home. "I could have destroyed all of this," she said, voice trembling with emotion as she flung the photos at me. They scattered across the porch like macabre confetti. "I followed him to daycare, you know. Your precious little one. So trusting, so friendly with strangers." My blood turned to ice. "If you ever went near my son—" "But I didn't," she interrupted, tears flowing freely now. "I couldn't. Even after everything, I couldn't hurt you that way. Her shoulders slumped, the manic energy suddenly draining from her. That's how I know I still love you, Ethan. Because I couldn't destroy what matters most to you, even when I wanted to. Behind me, I heard Haley on the phone with the police, her voice steady despite the situation. Lauren heard it too, her expression crumpling into resignation. They'll add this to my charges, she murmured, suddenly sounding exhausted. Violation of the restraining order. Another few months, probably. Why did you come here, Lauren? Really? I asked, genuinely perplexed by her self-destructive behavior. She looked at me with surprising clarity in her tearful eyes. Because I needed to see that you were real. That the life I threw away actually existed. That it wasn't just something I imagined. She wiped roughly at her tears with the back of her hand. And it is real. So perfectly, beautifully real. And I'll never have anything like it. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Lauren didn't run, didn't fight. She simply sat down on our porch steps, put her head in her hands, and waited for the inevitable. As the officers led her away in handcuffs, she looked back once, her face a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Be happy, Ethan, she called, her voice breaking. One of us should be. That night, after the police reports were filed, after Liam was safely asleep in his bed, Haley and I sat on the porch swing, shaken by the day's events. The evidence of Lauren's obsessive surveillance had been disturbing, but what troubled me most was the emptiness I'd seen in her eyes. The hollow space where a person's sense of self should be. Later that night, after guests had left and Liam was asleep, we sat on the porch swing, enjoying the summer evening. Haley was sketching preliminary ideas for a new project, while I reviewed client proposals. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Lauren hadn't left? Haley asked suddenly, looking up from her drawing. I considered the question carefully. Sometimes, but not in a regretful way, more like recognizing a turning point for what it was. Haley nodded. Some people come into our lives to stay. Others come to teach us something and then leave. What do you think Lauren was supposed to teach me? I asked, curious about her perspective. Your worth, Haley replied without hesitation. How to recognize it. How to demand that others recognize it too. I smiled, pulling her closer. Well, I certainly learned that lesson. Good, she said, resting her head on my shoulder. Because you're worth everything. As we sat there in comfortable silence, I thought about the journey that had led me here. From the lavender-scented apartment where Lauren had ended things to this peaceful evening with the family I'd built with Haley. It hadn't been a straight path, but every detour and obstacle had ultimately guided me home. In the prison library in Washington's state, Lauren arranged books on shelves, her movements mechanical after 3 years of the same routine. She'd lost weight, her once perfect hair now showing streaks of gray she couldn't hide without her expensive salon appointments. Between coming home and between two worlds, she slid a worn notebook, the journal her counselor had suggested she keep as part of her rehabilitation. On its first page, a simple entry, I lost everything when I looked for someone to fill my emptiness. But maybe someday I'll learn to fill it myself. The words were still aspirational rather than achieved. Lauren hadn't yet found the key to genuine contentment, but perhaps in the quiet hours of the prison library, surrounded by stories of redemption and second chances, she was beginning to understand where she had gone wrong. Meanwhile, in our home on the outskirts of Chicago, life continued, bright and full of promise, unburdened by the past. The shadow Lauren had once cast had faded completely, leaving only the lessons learned and the strength gained. Sometimes the most valuable gift someone can give you is showing you who they really are, even if that revelation comes through pain. Lauren's true self had been revealed the moment she expected to keep the benefits of our relationship without the relationship itself. And in that painful clarity, I had found my way forward, to Haley, to Liam, to a life built on mutual respect and genuine connection rather than convenience or obligation. It wasn't the path I had planned, but it was infinitely better than the one I would have walked had Lauren stayed.